Once more, good evening to our online session with Tidemi, where we will be discussing some cloud computing services or cloud computing resources with focus on AWS for today. So today we are going to be discussing something that I recommend that you should learn and understand before you actually start using your AWS Management Console immediately after the creation. So this is our AWS Management Console. If you remember in the previous videos, we created our AWS Management Console. If you don't know what a console is, if it's your first time, you should go back and watch a previous video on how to create an AWS Management Console. So after the creation of your console, you'll be deploying, you'll be launching, you'll be creating some services in the cloud, as you can see here. Okay, these are different services from storage, compute, security, right up to analytical. And these services will be launched or deployed in different parts of the world, which we call regions. Okay, so today I'm going to explain to you something known as the AWS Global Infrastructure, so you understand how AWS has been structured. It is basically like a state or a country, and they have different arms of government or structures that you need to understand, you need to master to know exactly what is what and all the rest. So I'm going to open my Paint application to demonstrate to you what I'm talking about. So today we'll be talking about something called, okay, the AWS Global Infra. So I'm just going to type infrastructure in short. Okay, this is exactly what we'll be talking about. And yes. So what is an AWS Global Infrastructure? As I said, if I'm to use a real world example, take it like, okay, the structure of a country or a state. Okay, for example, in the United States or in a country, for example, my country, Cameroon, we have Cameroon. Okay, when you go into Cameroon, you have, let's say, regions. Okay, there are 10 regions. Now, in that regions are divided into what? Divisions. Divisions are divided into subdivisions. Then we have municipal and others. Okay, those are the different structures of a state. For example, Cameroon. It is the same thing in the cloud. Okay, the AWS cloud is structured into regions, availability zones, data centers, and edge location. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what these things are, and you need to understand it because there are services in the cloud where you need to know that these are regional service. It means you launch them in a region and you can access only within that particular region. There are availability zone services or resources. Okay, we go deep down to VPC services and all the rest. So you need to understand this stuff. So let's say this is AWS. You see this rectangle here. It is AWS. So let me just expand this so that you will be big enough. So let's say this rectangle, as you can see, is AWS. Now, AWS is divided into the headquarters of AWS is in the United States of America. You should know that. Okay, it's owned by Amazon, the founder Jeff Bezos. So let's say AWS is structured into different regions. Okay, now regions are spread around the world. I'm going to show you the different regions and how you can actually know if a new region has been created or not. Okay, you should know that. So let's say these are regions and let me just draw this. So sorry, my sketch, it might not be that beautiful, but you should just understand what I'm talking about. So let's say these are different regions. You don't need to know the total number of regions we have in the world, but you should understand this stuff. Okay, it's a gradual process. Let's say these are different regions. Okay, so I'm going to call this region A. Let's call this region A. Let's call this region B, and let's call this region C. So those are different regions that you need to know that they exist. Okay, now, oh, sorry, let me just do it again. Region C. Perfect. So these are different regions. Now, AWS is divided into regions. Now, within this region, we have something called availability zones. Okay, now the short, simple definition of a region is made up of three or more availability zones. At first, a region was made up of two or more, but AWS has updated stuff. So a region is made up of three or more availability zones. Okay, so basically use circles like availability zones. So let's say this is an availability zone, this is an availability zone, this is an availability zone. Forget about the size of it. This is an availability zone, this is an availability zone, and this is one. And we have an availability zone here, availability zone here, and availability zone here. Okay, we call them easy. Okay, so I'm just going to call them easy. I'm calling the one easy. Okay, easies. I'm not going to name all, but you just need to know I'll call this easy. So a region is made up of three or more availability zone, and AWS. So that simply means that when there are three or more availability zone in a country, it can be in a continent, it all depends. Okay, they will term that area a region. Now, an availability zone is not something physical that you can see and touch. It's, I would say, virtual presence. But what you should know is an availability zone is made up of two or more data centers. Now, a data center is basically that physical structure which you can see, which you go there, you can, see and physically touch the parts. A data center is actually what is called cloud. Now, data center is a sophisticated structure and it can be an infrastructure. It can be a compound of as let's say 1000 meters square, or depends, okay? That has sophisticated IT resources, networking resources, cooling resources, electrical resources, and all the rest. Okay, data center is where you have all the servers, all the storages, the compute, okay, the graphics processing unit, which is being powered by beautiful power systems and backup systems, protected by electronic security and physical security. That is exactly where all those stuffs are. Now they decided that to do what? A data center now is connected to a super fast internet connection, which we can access the resources over the internet, and that is what is known as cloud computing. So an availability zone is made up of at least two data center. So I'm going to use these squares like data center. Okay. So an availability zone is made up of at least two data centers, as you can see here. So two, at least two, and they are not, even though on my diagram they look as if they are close, but you should know that they are not that close. Okay, they are not that close. They have been built in a way that in case of any fire, disaster in one data center, it will not affect the second one. So this is what AWS Global Infrastructure is. So when AWS go to a particular place, if they have one or two data center, they can term it an availability zone. One or two data center, they can term availability zone. Now, when they already have three availability zone in a particular country, in a particular state, they'll term that word a region. So this stuff is spread around the world. Okay, we have regions in America, the Americas, okay, North and South, Europe, Asia, and in Africa, we have one region. And in those regions, they have at least three availability zones, and in those availability zones, we have multiple data centers or at least two data centers. And in those data centers, that is where all the compute services or all the cloud resources, infrastructures that you're going to be accessing over the internet are located. So this is basically what you need to know or what you understand. And every day, AWS go as far as creating new data centers, edge location, and the rest. Okay, now I mentioned something called edge location. Now edge locations are basically, I would say they are not owned. Okay, they're not owned. So if AWS notice that, for example, in a particular country, let's say AWS notice in a particular region or an area, they cannot get an availability zone here or a data center here, but they are private data centers, okay, owned by individuals. They can decide to use it as a point of presence we call edge location, where they can temporarily store your data for those in this particular area to access it, not to go direct or as far as accessing a particular region. They can decide to bring that data closest to you, okay, closest to you in edge location where you can access. Or maybe you're a returning user, okay, you're a returning customer. When they notice that you're returning, they will cache most of your data closest to you in edge location in different points in present. And as I said, most edge location are not owned by AWS. Okay, the infrastructure itself are not owned by AWS. Most of the time, it's owned by private individuals, where they decide now AWS will decide now to come set it up. They can decide to bring their physical servers there and all the rest, or just decide to use your infrastructure as an edge location to temporarily catch information or cache users data. But in general, AWS The most important infrastructure you should know is the global infrastructure is the region, availability zones, data centers, and as well edge location. So I'm going to go to my browser and show you exactly how you can know the different components of AWS Global Infrastructure. So I've opened my Edge browser. So I'm just going to type here AWS Global Infrastructure. Okay, and I hit enter. I'm going to share the URL at the end of this. So there's actually a video where you can watch. Okay, but I'm going to click the first link as you can see here. So I'm going to open this to actually show you where you can see the component of a global infrastructure. Now, as I said, you don't need to cram how many regions, availability zone, data center, or edge location are in the world, but at least you need to know some. But if you want to know more or you want to get it in detail, come to this site, okay, on AWS site. So when I scroll down, you see here, okay, you scroll down, you go, see we have a North America region, we have South America, Europe, okay, we have regions in Europe, Middle East, we have regions, we have one region in Africa, which and Asia Pacific. So these are the various locations around the world or the continent. Okay, let me just put it in general because this is a continent, this is a continent, this is a continent, okay, this is a continent, okay, and yeah, Australia also. So when you click under North America, you're going to see the different regions. As you can see here, the most popular or the mother region of AWS US East. Okay, we have the 1 and 2. You get that? US East. In US East, US East. Okay, let me just go and show you something. So this is North Virginia, which is called the US East. That is it. Okay, we have the US East 1 and US East 2. Okay, that's exactly what I was trying to explain. West, we have West 1 and West 2, we have Central, Canada, and all the rest. So as you can see here, this is the responsive map. So if I click, for example, I go to Africa, you see, that is it. Presently, we have just one region in Africa, okay, and 4 edge locations, okay. These are different edge location. I think this is the most recent edge location that was deployed around, I think 2021-22. By then, I was still working in Nigeria. Okay, you see that. So if you go to Europe, there now you see we have 9 geographical regions, 30 edge location. So on this particular side, you can have a detailed understanding about AWS Global Infrastructure and every other thing that you need to know about AWS Global Infrastructure. So it is recommended for you to understand the differences. What is a region? Okay, as you use your AWS console, you'll be familiar with some regions, okay, like US East 1 and 2, North Virginia, Ohio, California, Oregon. Okay, you need to know that the region is made up of what? 3 or more AZs. And AZ is not a physical location, it's something virtually present. But in an AZ, we have 2 or more data centers. It is actually a data center that makes up what? It's actually a data center that makes up cloud. Okay, so a data center has a sophisticated resources that we are accessing over the internet. So you see here, AWS what span across what 123 availability zones, 39 geographical regions, okay, and we announced what plan for 7 more coming and others. So that is basically what global infrastructure is, and that is exactly what I wanted you to know, to have this beautiful basic information so that as we continue, you know, deploying and creating stuff in the cloud, you know exactly what you're doing, where you're placing your stuff, which region is closest to your customers, and also, last thing you should know that not all the services in the cloud are present in this region. When you create your account, some regions will be enabled by default, some will not. You need to manually enable them. And also you should know that not all the services present in the cloud can be found in this region. Okay, you should not be surprised that there are some services that are found in North Virginia. In fact, in general, all services are found in North Virginia, but you should not be surprised that they are not found, for example, in Paris or Sao Paulo and other rest. Okay, so those are some little things you need to understand and know when getting into the cloud. So that is the little I have for you today. Thank you, stay tuned, and see you in the next video. Bye for now.